All right, guys, welcome to the Buff Show. Today we're going to cover rentals and
Part 2.
Rentals 101, part 102.
102. Yeah.
102.
We're going to talk more about what happens when you actually get
When
the
you
rental.
buy a rental. So I had a buddy call me. He's buying a house, going to rent it out. And he's like, is it hard to find renters? What do I do? Where do I get a lease? Do I hire a property manager? So we're going to cover those types of questions in this podcast. You've been there. I've been there.
Yep.
I remember the first property I bought, I'm like, shoot, can I find a renter? Will anybody want to rent this? What was your experience?
So and that's why I was going to ask you about your first one. My first one was nice and easy. I bought a duplex. Well, it was a townhome, two different properties. We moved into one, and then the other one had a renter already installed in it. So I absorbed his lease, but it was month to month, right? So they weren't under a lease, but it worked out and it was easy. After they left, the first person that I ever put in there, I got nervous. I didn't want to have to make a payment because at that time my rents were covering my payment. I was so scared. So the first person that came, I jumped on it.
Yeah.
And I said, yep, you're in, it's yours. And he's like, well, I won't be able to be in for 2 months. And so I didn't take the time to really vet him out. I just said, yeah, let's do it. Well, then he ended up dropping out. And I told like 67 other people that wanted to rent it no, because I'd already rented it. So what I would do is be calm, patient, and nobody has rented your property until you actually have their deposit and signed on a lease.
So don't do it like how Ben did it, because I posted ours. We bought a house.
And this is your very last rental you've done, right?
No, this was my very first one. So this was like in 2013 or 14.
Perfect.
And it was in Logan, bought a house, and I just did a makeshift kitchen in the basement. Like there wasn't a kitchen down there. We had to bring in a range, plumb in a sink, made it work. I remember our payment was $933 a month. Rented the upstairs for $900 a month.
Dang.
And I was like, this is sweet. And I remember posting it for rent for $900, and all of a sudden my phone just starts blowing up, like calls left and right, people wanting to see it, show it. I'm like, holy cow, this is crazy. And I think I posted it on like KSL Rentler, maybe Facebook Marketplace, put a sign in the yard. And I just start getting all these calls. I was worried about nobody wanting it. And I had like an ample supply of people willing to rent it, willing to pay a good price. So then I was like, well, crap. Okay, once I found somebody that I liked or fit the parameters, I was like, what do I do now? And I found a lease online. The lease, and it's a lease that we still use today. It's called Utah Eviction Law. If you go to utahevictionlaw.com, these attorneys in Utah, they put together a lease that's really good. It's robust. And I think they did it so that if you ever have an eviction or needed an eviction, you call them.
And then their contract, they know how to defend it.
They know how to defend it. And it's very strong. It's good. They're helpful, but that's whose leases we use. And you can just print it out on their website.
Free, right?
Yeah, free. Fill that out. In the beginning, we weren't even really doing background checks. I recommend those now. And you can sign up for like a free place to do a background check on somebody, or KSL. And I think Zillow even has like ways that they can do like a kind of a background.
Like a pre-check to even to be able to,
to apply.
Yeah.
And on Utah Eviction Law, they have applications. So you want to take some applications first. You treat it like a house you're trying to sell. You hold it open, get, 5 or 6 groups through, collect, 1 to 3 applications, review them and see who meets your requirements the best. You can't discriminate. So you want to be very careful. You're not saying, well, we're not renting to you because of this. You're just taking applications, and then go with who is most qualified to live there. And it's really pretty basic
For sure.
From that. And then what do you normally do for like the deposit, monthly rent? How much is a deposit? How do you determine that?
So my rents, the biggest thing is I look around, just like selling a house. I look around and see what my competition is.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a bunch of rents and I'm like, I need someone in here.
Yeah.
I'm going to be $100 less than everyone around me.
Yeah.
Because I want to catch someone.
Mm-hmm.
However, in certain markets, it doesn't matter. You match the rents, you'll eventually fill. A big portion of my deposit or that non-refundable is I'll do a deposit that's refundable up to 100%.
Yeah.
But if I'll allow animals, I don't mind dogs, cats, I like cats personally, but they pee and you can never get the cat pee smell out.
Mm-hmm.
So I allow dogs. And if I do that in those leases, you write in that you're going to reserve X amount for carpet cleaning that's non-refundable.
Yeah.
And I like to do, depending on the property, if it's a brand new property, I like to match a month's rent.
Yeah.
I have some older houses that I know that, people are going to live in these homes. And you have to remember you're running a business and it's not your personal home that you want someone to take care of. I'll lower sometimes that to $1,000 because you collect first, last month's, and security deposit.
That's what you do?
Yep. Now, and I like to do that because when they give me their 30 days, I know I have their last month's rent.
Yeah.
The hard part with that is, right now in Morgan is where I have a lot of my rentals, is the average rent for like a townhome or a smaller home is around $2,000 a month.
You're talking like $6,000.
Yeah. You're coming up with about $6,000 cash.
Yeah.
That's good and bad. One, it deters some potentially really good renters because not many people are rocking around an extra 6G.
Yeah.
Which even I don't a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll lower that security deposit and then just have an airtight thing. Because after a certain point of damage, if $1,000 can't cover it, you're going to a small claims court regardless.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. But as far as, like you said, background checks and stuff like that, that is what, and I would recommend that because you can get a good feel for someone without actually, they can't lie to you about it.
Mm-hmm.
However, I've only done one background check on one renter ever, and they've been my worst renter.
Really?
Yep.
That's funny.
They were the best credit, best background, and one of my worst backgrounds that I knew, and they were honest about it, has been my best renter. Never had an issue. Calls me the second something breaks. Half the time he has it fixed, but just gives me a, hey, I did this.
Huh.
So I personally, I like to meet them in person too.
Yeah.
I like to get a feel for someone.
Yeah.
But there's always that added layer of protection with the background check. So,
And then who do you make pay for the background check?
One case, I hired a property manager for just a little bit. They had the clients pay for it, or the potential renters pay for it. It was very small, it was like $35 or something like that. It was part of the application fee. I don't do application fees now, as long as someone's willing to put in the time and they want to come see it. And I don't, especially in a booming rental market, I won't accept an application unless they come see the property. Just like a house, right? Are you going to accept an offer usually if they haven't been through the property? Or your first question is, have you shown the property yet? Or are they just trying to lock it up?
Right.
So I like to get a feel for the people and I can match their face, their personalities to this application.
Yeah. Because you're self-managing.
Self-managing.
Oh.
And there's a point to, like I said, that's why I did it for just a little bit, just because I wasn't big enough to hire that property manager.
So how we do it, I mean, we have a management company now, but we have a few that we manage still. Like we just rented our house in Eden. It's close enough. We're managing it ourselves. So we did the monthly rent there's like $3,300, and we did first month's rent, obviously, and then a matching deposit. We didn't collect last month's rent because we're talking like almost $10,000.
Yeah.
So we did 1 month's rent and a deposit and ran with that. You can ask for last month's rent. It depends on the people. Like if you can get those three, it solidifies the contract quite a bit because then you have an extra month's rent if they ever quit paying, that you can be like, hey, you didn't pay last month. Like we're booting you out unless you pay.
Yeah, it gives you a paid 30 days of a missed payment.
Yep.
And they have to give you that notice, right?
Yeah.
So they can't technically put that money in place unless they give you a 30-day notice.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we make them pay for their application fee and background, all that. It's normally $30 to $40. They do an application. And then if we like what we see there, we'll meet with them, sign a lease, collect the deposit and first month's rent. And then we'll have a day on there when they get the keys. It's pretty straightforward from there. The deposit, we have like $250 non-refundable on almost every time because whether it's a dog or a baby, like you almost need to clean the carpets no matter what. Yep. We just reserve that for that. And then there's like a property inspection checklist that we'll have them fill out, just like saying what condition the property was in when they took ownership.
One good thing I like to do with that checklist, like you were talking about, go through and it might cost you $150 or something, either hire a videographer or yourself.
Yeah. Get
a video and just do a walk of every room, every wall, and you just walk through and do a slow walk through of your house. That way, if they say, no, that hole was in the wall or that chewed up corner or this door didn't
It wasn't there. You have
And you
proof.
say, yep, here's the video
Here's
that
the
we
video.
took. You a timestamp. So
Yeah.
here's a question.
Yeah.
How often do you go inside and check your rentals?
I mean,
how often do you do it, and what would you recommend? How about that?
Yeah.
Mine are different.
I would love to say that I do it quarterly, but I don't. I probably do it once a year, maybe. Like I try and make an effort to go switch the furnace filters and stuff like that. So once or twice a year, beginning of winter and then end of winter, start of summer, So like spring and fall are kind of good times to get in there.
Because it's awkward. You say, "Hey, I'm gonna come walk through your house."
Well,
a stranger come walk through your house.
If you can say that you're doing changing filters or checking on stuff, I think that's fine. A lot of times we'll do spring cleanups. I'll go like because I know these properties. A lot of them we've lived there. Maybe get the sprinklers ready to be turned on or drain them in the wintertime. Spray for weeds. Like if you can do preventative weed control around the properties, that really helps. I found most tenants do not care about the landscaping. They don't, they just let it go. It seems like every time.
And I think, like you say, after you get a tenant in, you'll know which ones you need to pay more attention to, and which ones where you're going to give them the space.
Yeah.
Because they've shown that, pride and of their home. So
yeah. And there's a bunch of like you said, there's a ton of different kinds of tenants and how they'll operate, and some are more needy than others, and other ones will be like, hey, the light bulb burned out, and you're like, well, go grab one.
Yep. So little things like that, and this will save some heartache for the new first time renters, right? Because you want to be you want to be really good, and you want to be, but at the same time you don't want to be overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
I actually put in our leases stuff like minor things like a light bulb went out or the door or whatever, just silly things. Or I locked myself out or something like that.
That's on you.
That is, we put in there, hey, like, if I'm around, give me a call. But like, I had a tenant lock himself out and I was out of the country.
Yeah, you're like, call locksmith.
Yep. And I said, call locksmith. He goes, yeah. He said, I can't get in. And I said, well, do you have a drill? And he goes, well, yeah. And I said, well, you can, it's cheap. A door handle, you rekeying the doors on this property is going to be cheaper than you calling a locksmith.
Right.
So he's like, okay, if you're okay with it, I'm like, oh, I'm okay with it. But you kind of state that like it's on you.
So he just drilled through the lock.
He drilled through the lock and got into the house for that night. And then, he put nice new handles on each one.
Yeah.
But it's per person. But if you don't state and you're very clear, it's a contract game, just like a house, on how you want to operate this relationship with you and your tenant. If it's not stated, then it's really up to anybody's game, and burden falls on you as the landlord.
Do you let's cover where do they make payments? Are they bringing you check, cash, Venmo? What do you do?
So I have a preferred method. I like them to either I run mine through Golden West, get a Golden West account, or go to a Golden West and deposit into an account. So I give them each their own card, and then when they deposit, it has their name and everything on it, and so it's quick. If they get their own account at Golden West, then they can actually transfer from account to account their rents.
Yeah.
So we don't have to see any checks like that. However, I've had some people who had different benefits and different things like that, and she would come to my door every 14th and pay in green $100 bills. And sometimes, after that happens, I'm a little more willing to like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
And I paid my taxes on it and everything, right? So stuff like that, I will. As of right now, where I'm smaller and more self-managing, I'm more willing to cope with the needs of people, but I try to get them to make it more automatic.
Yeah.
So
it does get annoying. You start getting rents and you get, 3, 4, 5, 6 checks, and you're like, geez, like trying to mobile deposit or like keep track of them. Like it just gets to be a lot.
And if you don't get to the bank in time when your stuff comes out,
Yeah.
Reserves. What do you hold once you get a property going? What do you hold in like rent reserves?
I don't have like a good rule of thumb. I let it sit there and I try and keep enough for like a new roof, furnace. We have quite a few properties now, so like our incoming and outgoings a lot. And like just this year, like we have 4 properties that our accounts don't pay for the property taxes, and I wasn't aware. Like I just forget. And then come November, I got 4 tax bills. One of them was $7,000.
Whoops.
So I was looking at like.
So you say that because you don't have a traditional mortgage, so they weren't collecting it in an escrow account. So
Correct.
You have to pay that on your own.
Correct. So we try and keep a healthy balance there just so that a new roof or taxes, that I wasn't thinking about, we can pay those.
I think a good rule for a very first rental is I would keep at least 3 months rent in there.
Yeah, that's a good rule because most rents are probably around $2,000 a month. So
Yep.
you're talking like 6 to 10 grand. If you had 10 grand, I mean, that's nice. That'll cover most furnaces or AC issues, a roof.
And some of those issues that, like a roof, furnace, AC, those are some of those issues that you don't get to save up for. Like if it was your personal residence, right? If your furnace goes out, you might have to tough it out for a week or two, or your AC goes out in the summer. You might tough it out all the rest of the summer and then pay for it next spring because you don't need it.
Yeah. But like the roof, you can kind of plan for because you're like, oh, it's getting pretty old. It's been there 15 years. Like start budgeting more for that because a new roof could be 10, 15, 20 grand, depending on the size of the roof.
Do you break down a budget for each property based on their ages? I don't either.
No.
So it's a very fine line between how much time you can put into it and how much time you have to put into it.
Do you have an LLC for your rentals?
I have an LLC for one of my rentals.
Okay.
And I preach it to everybody else because it is the right thing to do. I just haven't got around to it.
So time-wise. Do you want to know what I do?
Talk to me.
I set up like a rental LLC, for all my rentals. So every rental property I have, I collect the rents in that one LLC.
Okay.
And then, but currently, I don't have any property paid off yet. So if I were to transfer, what I would do is I would say if I owned 123 Main Street, I would do 123 Main Street LLC. When that property is paid off, I would put that into its own LLC. And then I'd have like a series LLC, which is like the mother one that collects all the rents. So then I only have to do one tax return for the one LLC, but then all the members of that one are protected within their own LLC. So quite a few of our rental properties, like we're sitting with quite a bit of equity in there, but they're not fully paid off. The reason, if you transfer it into an LLC, technically the lender could call it due on sale. Yep. There's a due on sale clause, and meaning that I transferred it to an LLC, even though that's an LLC that I own, they could still call that loan due and payable.
Yep.
And I don't want to lose a 3% interest rate that I have on a lot of these rental properties.
Correct.
Because a lot of them I got when rates were amazing. So I'm just keeping them in my name.
Do
you know how I'm hedging against liability?
How?
A big umbrella policy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And now we're getting real deep into it after your first one because you have to have a special insurance, a renter's insurance.
Yeah.
I carry an umbrella policy just in case.
Yeah.
But also part of that umbrella policy is attorneys and discrimination lawsuits. You see some of them are very real, but a lot of them become frivolous.
Yeah.
And there's actually an insurance for that.
I've heard the umbrellas, they find out there's an umbrella and you're covered by that. Like rarely are they going to go past the umbrella into the rental properties.
Correct.
So like how you have that set up. So most people are super stressed about like LLC. I think you need one to run the rents through and then have like a big umbrella policy for the liability part. And if you have the LLC set up for your rental business, then you can get the tax write-offs and all that.
Correct.
Which is helpful. But yeah, I started creating these little LLCs for each one. And then I'm like, I don't want to risk lenders being like, oh, Hayden just changed the name of his property. It sold and his rate's super low. Let's make him refinance
let's
or
get rid of 7% or something.
Let's get rid of that loan. And I'm like, I'm not touching them until they're paid off. Once they're paid off, I think I'll do the individual LLCs.
Here's a question for you. I've had clients buy rentals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very new into the rental game. And I see a lot of them wanting to go in and take this very livable, very decent property. And they want to, let's replace all the carpets and replace. And I tell them like, don't do that.
No.
Like if they're good and they're like livable and clean. I mean, obviously if you
don't want to be a slumlord.
Yeah. But at a certain point, people are going to live in these homes. And then I get just the opposite of that. Well, the walls are clean and I went in and checked and their baby had applesauce on the wall and you want to look at it and be like, this is a tool, right?
Yeah.
For your job. You don't get mad if, because you're a mechanic and you
beat up a wrench.
Beat up a wrench. This is a tool in a business.
Yeah. They're going to get destroyed at one point. Not destroyed, but you're going to need new carpet and paint.
And that is a very realistic thing that you have to kind of let go of, and it'll help you be a better renter.
So we're better landlord.
We're better landlords?
No, you said it'll help you be a better renter, but...
Yeah, but it'll help you be a better landlord.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like our Eden house we just bought. It could use new carpet, but I'm also like, well, if I change out the carpet, I'm not going to want pets in here, but if I keep the carpet how it is, I don't care if they have pets in here, Yep. And so there's just like those...
And that is a key... If sometimes there's times of the year, like right now, it's harder to get a renter right now.
Yeah.
No one's moving right before Christmas and Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
Spring and summer is that big rental exchange.
Mm-hmm.
But you see if you allow pets and the less rules you have, just like with buyers, right? The more willing you're working with a buyer on a sale,
the
more you have in that pool of buyers.
Right.
The more relaxed on your rules you have, like, okay, screw it. They need new carpets anyways. They're still nice, but if they have dogs in there, do you know how many people will pay more and be more willing to rent from you if they can have their dog? Because who doesn't have a dog?
Everybody has a dog.
Everybody has a dog.
And the crazy thing is even if they say they don't have a dog, they'll just be like, hey, this is an emotional support animal after the fact. And then you can't say squat about them getting a dog. And there's like doctors out there that will just write up these letters saying, oh yeah, they need an emotional support animal. They get a letter, they're in your rental, and you can't up the rent. You can't charge them a deposit. So it's almost better to be like
upfront about it.
Yeah. I think you can be more, and don't quote me on this, but if you live in the property, you can be more discriminatory in who is coming into there and like what rules you're setting. If you are owner occupying the property.
I'm going to agree to a point. You can be more stringent on your rules, not more discriminatory. Discrimination is, you say that word and everyone goes race and sex and stuff like that. But
I was talking towards like dogs.
Dogs, right.
Yeah.
But, or even a big one that I see a lot is, I don't want someone with a bunch of kids in here. Because let's be honest,
they're worse.
Kids are hard on shit, right?
Yeah.
So that's a form of discrimination. So read through. Don't open your mouth to a renter if you didn't choose them. If hey, we didn't go by you. Well, why? We found a better candidate.
Yeah.
Don't tell them like, oh, you had kids, or
don't give them
these guys were cleaner,
why.
Or just we had a better candidate.
We had multiple applications, and there was somebody that matched the requirements first before you. You can even blame it on like, well, the first candidate that we looked at was great, and we had to go with them.
Yep. Or just at the end of the day, we chose
somebody else.
Yep, we just chose somebody else.
Yeah.
You're not obligated to give a reason, and you shouldn't give a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a book out there that I like. It's called The Book on Managing Rental Properties, I think, by Brandon and Heather Turner. Okay. Good book. Get that if you want to like dig into it more. Any other resources or guides that you feel like would be helpful?
Anyone else that's ever rented.
Yeah. It's not that hard.
It's not that hard. There's weird little pitfalls. And I mean, we could blast a ton. Was your mic unplugged this whole time? We could blast you with all these horror and scare stories, and you want to protect yourself. Yes. But at the end of the day, everyone's human. There's going to be issues, but it's all normal.
Yeah.
So just get in, be smart about it, and touch on people. Hey, I've had this happen in my property. Have you ever had something like that? And if you haven't had something, you're going to know somebody that's had that and how they handled it.
We've seen just about every issue come up on rentals now, and it's not that hard. How many, I want to ask you this question. How many 1 o'clock in the morning are toilets flooding calls have you had?
Never at 1 o'clock in the morning. And remember that renter that I said is probably my worst candidate, but best renter. I had him call me last year, it was January, about 6 o'clock at night. Hey, our furnace went out. And so I was scrambling. I couldn't find anybody that could get there that night to get their furnace going. And I called them back like an hour later to give them an update. And so just those panic moments. And he goes, oh, it's not a big deal. We have a couple space heaters.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh yeah, why didn't I just calm down and wait till Monday because this is Saturday night?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's fine. So you just keep a mellow head, be realistic.
Yeah. Rarely is it like end of the world
Right.
issues.
And you can fix everything. And also most of the time in my experience, it's not the renter's fault. So the better and more personable you can be with your renter, the quicker they'll tell you about an issue. Like, hey, you just tell them like, hey, if you got something going on, let me know. Like,
Yeah, I want to be proactive.
yeah, I want to stay on top of it before it causes a lot of damage or something like that. Because you'll have, if you're intimidating, or like they break a blind or just normal wear and tear, and you're trying to nickel and dime them for $15, $30, $40 here and there,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to call you when they have a shower that's been leaking behind a wall.
Yeah.
And they know it, but they're like, yeah, screw it, it's not our fault.
Yeah.
And then when we leave, we'll say, well, yeah, I don't know what happened. That was your bathroom.
Yeah.
So be good to your renters, be open with them, be fair. And I'm not saying at the end of the day, it'll work out.
Last question. What does that first mailbox money check feel like?
It makes you feel like a freaking G, like a freaking top dog. Like, yeah, I've made it. Like I'm out here, hustling. So
yeah, it feels cool.
It does.
You get it. You're like, wow. Like I kind of set this up and it just came in the mail.
This is what this side feels like, because we've all written them. We've all been like, man, I've got 14 cents left after I go give somebody this wad of money. Like, man, that sucks.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It gets addicting, and that's why it's such a fun business to build. Everybody needs a rental.
Everybody needs rental.
Yeah. So if you have questions, reach out. Hopefully this gives you kind of the first glance on what it's like. It's not that hard. It's not that complex. I've yet to have to do an eviction, knock on wood. And
why would you say that?
Because it's been crazy. I mean, 10 plus years and no evictions.
Well, and I think a lot of that goes to
our processes, maybe
processes.
I think I got lucky.
Being fair too.
I think I got lucky.
Yeah. I've never had an eviction. I've had a we just can't pay.
Yeah.
And
then you work it out.
We worked it out, and they're back up. And there's a time where you draw a line, but
yeah,
if you're fair or you're not trying to cut throats, when you start pushing, you'll get pushed back.
Yeah.
So,
well, this has been helpful, insightful, I'm sure. So, if you guys have questions, just holler.
I love you.